Hi, my name is Marty Plecky. Today I'm going to talk about and start a new project. What you see over here is a 20-year-old furnace in my home, so I'm downstairs. Everything works on this furnace just fine, but over the winter I had to replace the igniter in it, and that's way back up here. It took from about 9 o'clock until 1 in the morning to get it replaced, but if I waited till morning it would have been really cold in the house. So I just bit the bullet and stayed up and made that happen. The reason it took so long is because it's so far in the back. Replacing this in the winter when it goes bad costs way more than it does when it's convenient to replace. So since it's more than 20 years old, I'm going to replace this guy. And I had several contractors come to the house and talk to me about replacing this, and they all wanted more than double what the furnace costs. I know that I can do this job. It's not complicated because I'm just replacing this furnace with the same BTU value, the same style, the same efficiency. So I don't really think that I need to pay these guys double what it would cost for the furnace. I was willing to pay, several hundred up to $1,000, but not $2,000 to $3,000 for those guys to come in here and do something that I know I can do myself. I've already taken measurements off of this furnace so that I don't make a mistake. For instance, this plenum above the furnace is a certain size, and I made sure that the furnace that I bought, and I bought it from Lowe's because they had one that was built in the United States, so that's the one I'm going to get. So I made sure that the length and width of this plenum up here will fit the new furnace. I made sure that the furnace's width and depth back that way would fit in the same footprint, and the new furnace that I bought is a little shorter, so down here where the former installers put little blocks to raise the furnace up, I'm going to have to raise it up about another 5 inches, but that's no problem. Here's where the return air is, and this is the filter. So the new furnace has the same cutout for attaching this return air. So all this should work just fine. When I redid the basement of this house, I enclosed the furnace with walls, and I put a little note here to myself or anybody else that would have to replace this furnace about how to take the walls apart so that you can service this furnace or else replace it. And I've already got the walls taken apart, so there was a wall there. When I replaced the furnace here, I'll be able to re-enclose it by just putting back that wall and screwing it down so that it stays in place. This is the new furnace. It's called a Goodman, 80,000 BTU, 92% efficient. This furnace has the exhaust coming out the top here, but they have on the side an alternative way to exhaust it, which is how my current furnace is hooked up. So I'm going to have to take off this boot and adapt this little line to a piece of PVC that comes out of here through this hole. But I'm going to have to adapt so that this little line, this drain line, can do what it's supposed to do. This is the inlet to the old furnace, but it's really close to where the flue or outlet to the new furnace is. And I want to come out here rather than on top where the new furnace is, because if I try and use this, this whole intake pipe is going to have to go through strange machinations for it to come over to this side of the new furnace where the air intake is. So that's why I want to put the exhaust over here, so this guy will be a straight shot. And what I'll do here is put a 45 here, go up this way, and attach it to with another 45 to this air intake. And I'll be able to use this length of this pipe and not even have to buy any PVC for the new installation. So I have that figured out, and now I'm going to disconnect the gas line to the old furnace. You just unscrew this and it drops this bottom part off from the top part, and then you can start unscrewing these things to get it off the old furnace. But the first thing you have to do, and not forget about that, is turn the gas off. So this is a pipe wrench. I've got two of them. That one is from my father. So it's a nice memory to use a tool that he probably got when he was in the Navy during World War II. Anyhow, this is, I'm pretty sure it's called a union, and I'm just going to break that union, unscrew it, and start to take these pipes out. This is how this sheet metal is bent to hold the upper and lower part of the return air together. And right here, when this is all driven all the way to the other side, the fella bent it over, which is probably exactly the right thing to do, just like this side here. So I straightened this one out on this side and pounded this thing that way. But it's not easy to remove it because right here it gets crimped pretty tight. You know, like right there. You just have to be persistent. Back here is the one in the back, and I straightened this one out. It was really hard to get in here. And what I ended up doing, once I got this kind of straightened out, I rammed a screwdriver in there and tapped it with a hammer to straighten out that bend so it would be easier to slide out and uncouple the top and bottom of the return air. I'm straightening this part of the bend out so it'll be easier to install, to reinstall. So this is just a spacer. If I pound on it right here without this spacer, it'll collapse this edge, and then it'll be impossible to get it back on the return air vent. These long S channels were not crimped onto here like this. So once I took the front and back of these off, this whole thing was able to drop off. I had to disconnect a couple of screws here. So this is ready to pull right out. The bottom of the return air was connected to this another piece of bent up sheet metal that's connected to the furnace. So I had to take out two screws on this side and two on the other side to get this disconnected from the furnace. The old furnace has the electric on the right side here, and I'm going to disconnect that and move the feed line to the opposite side because the new furnace has it over on this side. I'm going to take some pictures of how the electrical is connected. This one is easy, it's just power, so there's a hot and a neutral. This is the one that I really want to take a picture of because this box right here is an adaptation in order to make this furnace be controlled by a smart thermostat that I put in, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago. So it's important for me to be able to identify this stuff and connect it to the right spot on the new furnace. I'm in the process of taking this switch out. Before I started this, I turned off the power at the circuit breaker box, so I'm not going to get electrocuted, which is a good thing. So this is the feed in, and this is the line that goes to the furnace. I have the air conditioner suspended with this rope, and on the other side there's a little brace in the back that's connected to these shelves to keep up the other side of the air conditioning coils. And then I removed the blocks from underneath the furnace here and just tilted it down, and then removed the other blocks on the other side and then pulled it out from underneath the air conditioner. Now I just have to take this top off and put it on the new one and stick it back under, and we're ready to start installation. The old furnace is out. I took off the pocket for the filter from the old furnace, and I've marked off the dimensions, or the hole to cut out for the filter on the new furnace. I'm going to start that with this abrasive wheel. The cutout is complete. Now I'm going to slide these tabs up here. I've bent these two over in order to get these in place on that side, so I can knock this thing that way, and then I'll be able to bend these up at the opening over here. So it kind of goes just like this. Now those guys down there I straightened out, and I'll be able to just bend those over after I knock this filter holder in place that way. All right, it's in place and lined up. I can start bending these guys over. The filter slot is installed now. I made a cutout here on the side of the furnace to put a switch. The thing they had there didn't lend itself to putting a switch in, so I thought this is a pretty nice installation. Very secure. And then up here is where the feed's going to come in, and I made the hole for that with this step bit. I have the furnace on that little dolly, which I made from an old portable dishwasher bottom. It's been very handy to move this furnace around. And the furnace is right now ready to install on those blocks, and then I'll put the front blocks in place after I have the furnace staged on those cinder blocks. The furnace is in place and shimmed to level, front to back and side to side. I vacuumed the underside of the air conditioning coils, and now I'm going to tap the plenum back together by tapping the front part of this until these holes line up. Now that I have the furnace in place, I can take some other measurements for the return air duct and not have to guess. It's more accurate because the furnace is already in place. So I measured from here up to here where that return air connects to the rest of the ductwork. And I measured from here 46.5 inches and marked it right here. So I'll take this outside because it's a mess when you cut with that abrasive wheel. Cut it outside. I have the intake and exhaust fitted up, but I'm not going to glue them together until everything is fitted up so that I don't have to undo something that it doesn't work right. I still have the gas to fit up, and right now I'm working on the electrical connections. And there's the control board. And I'm very careful about what connections I'm making here. There's the connections I have to make. And my thermostat has this adapter. I've already hooked up the wires from the thermostat to this adapter, and then these wires here correspond to the ones that were on that diagram, and I'm just going to be very careful about which ones I attach to which, so that I don't, inadvertently blow something out. I'm also going to refer to the pictures I took of the connections on the old furnace to make sure that I'm not doing something wrong. The connections are made. All these coming from this adapter here were labeled, but the two coming from the line that goes out to the outside air conditioner were not labeled. So I made labels to those and put them where they belong per the installation manual and the pictures that I took. Now I have to go into the control board menu and disable this R32 refrigerant sensor, because I don't have R32 refrigerant. I have R410, I believe. So I have to do this right here, and that's on the control board behind all this wiring. Now, if I had been putting this together, I would not have put all this wiring right in front of the control board. And what I have to do is get back here. So what I'm going to do is break this apart and re-wire tie it away from right in front of the control board. It's still a tangle of wires, but I can see the display and the buttons that I have to push to disable the R32 sensor. Reading the installation instructions to disable the A2 refrigerant, because I don't have that, they said press the left or right button until A2E displays. Well, I thought that meant press and hold it, but it meant press and increment. So press, release until A2E comes up, which I finally discovered, and I disabled the refrigerant sensor for A32. I'm connecting the gas line now, and I noticed that the people that installed the original furnace, when they cut this pipe, they didn't deburr the ID. So this is supposed to be a 1/2-inch diameter ID pipe, and it was down to about maybe 3/8 at the most. So I've deburred some of it already. You can see some of the chips inside. Same situation up top. That needs to be deburred. There's another indication that the professionals sometimes leave things to be desired too. I use this tool to deburr that pipe, and that's properly deburred. Big difference in the diameter of the hole. Little by little, I have the gas line hooked up. I put some high temperature silicone adhesive around the plenum here to limit the amount of air that comes out through there. I used the plug that came with the furnace. I cut out an ID to fit this PVC tube, and it worked just fine. So this area has to be airtight. And once I get the cover on now, it will be. I made this guy to plug up this because the furnace originally came with exhaust coming out of here. But I wanted it to come out of here. Also, the ductwork was pretty dusty, and I vacuumed all that out. Now I just have to bend this tab over, just like the old one, and install the ductwork. And I can test the furnace out to make sure everything works properly. This is how I'm bending the tab on the ductwork here. I just put 2 pieces of wood here and clamped them nice and tight and just bend this over. It's better than trying to move it over a little bit at a time. This keeps it a lot straighter. I have my little dolly underneath the return air ductwork, and I'm just about ready to move that in place. The return air duct is reattached front and back. I rewrote my instructions on how to take the walls down so the furnace can be serviced or replaced. Of course, it shouldn't have to be replaced for another 25 years, and it won't be me doing it. I've got this ductwork screwed in here with this brace, and I've got it supported down here with one of these little adjustable supports front and back. They don't need it, but I put it in anyway because I had them. I spent a long time thinking about whether to get a permit or not for this project, and eventually decided to get the permit because I wanted the records at the village to be proper and right when we go to sell this house. So the inspector came by, checked all my work. The gas, the electric, the thermostat, the ductwork was all connected properly. So I'm pretty happy with that result, and I think it was the right decision to go for the permit. It cost $63 to have the inspection done. And the online permitting process was really very easy. I was surprised. I was expecting to spend like 4 hours trying to get this permit, and it ended up being about 15 minutes online. I had problems connecting the thermostat to the furnace wiring. I had it connected the way the old furnace was connected, but it didn't come on right away. So I looked at all kinds of other alternatives, and eventually I went back to the way it was connected with the old furnace, and I was in the process of looking up the phone number for Honeywell thermostats, and while I was doing that, I had the furnace turned on, and eventually it just started. So I guess I was not patient enough to wait for the furnace control board to time out a new start. Anyway, it works now. If you learn anything from these videos, learn that sometimes it just takes a lot of persistence to finish a job. Persistence pays off. I'm going to have a great day now that everything is working. I hope you do too.